I was sitting on the floor of my small apartment in Portland, Oregon, folding laundry, when my mother called me. It was a Sunday evening, and I already had a bad feeling in my gut before I even picked up the phone. "Hi, Mom," I said, trying to sound normal. There was a short pause on the other end. "Isla," she said, her voice stiff. "We need to talk about Sophia's wedding." My stomach tightened. My younger sister Sophia was getting married in 3 weeks. I had already bought a dress, booked my leave from work, and was genuinely excited to be there for her, even though our relationship had always been complicated. "What about it?" I asked carefully. My mother took a deep breath, like she was about to say something difficult. "Your father and I have decided it would be better if you didn't come to the wedding." I froze. For a second, I thought I had misheard her. "What?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "We think it's for the best," she continued, as if she was talking about something as normal as canceling a dinner reservation. "Sophia's under a lot of stress with the wedding planning. Having you there might create unnecessary tension. You know how things can get between you two." I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. "Mom, I'm her sister. How can you not want me at her wedding?" "Your father agrees with me," she said quickly, avoiding my question. "We've already spoken to Sophia about it. She thinks it's better this way too." That last part hurt the most. Sophia had agreed to ban me from her own wedding. I sat there in silence, trying to process what I was hearing. My own parents were asking me to stay away from one of the biggest days in our society's lives, and my sister was okay with it. "Why?" I finally asked, my voice cracking. "What did I do that's so terrible you don't want me there?" My mother sighed, like I was being difficult on purpose. "Isla, you know things have always been tense between you and Sophia, and with everything that happened last year, we just think it's better to avoid any drama on her special day." Last year. She was talking about the fight we had when I refused to lend Sophia money for her wedding dress. I had just started my own small marketing agency and was barely keeping my head above water. I told her I couldn't afford it. She never forgave me for that. I took a shaky breath. "So that's it?" I said. "You're just kicking me out of my own sister's wedding?" My mother's voice turned cold. "Don't make this harder than it already is, Isla. We've made our decision. Please respect it." She hung up before I could say anything else. I sat on the floor for a long time, staring at my phone. My chest felt tight and a heavy, painful feeling was spreading inside me. They didn't want me at my own sister's wedding. If you've ever been excluded or pushed aside by your own family on a day that should have been about love and togetherness, drop a comment right now and tell me where you're watching from. I read every single one. My name is Isla Bennett, and this is a story of how my parents banned me from my sister's wedding, and how by the next morning, the venue had canceled everything. I sat on the floor for almost 20 minutes after my mother hung up. The phone was still in my hand, but I couldn't move. My chest felt tight, and a heavy, painful feeling was spreading inside me. They didn't want me at my own sister's wedding. Not because I did something wrong, not because I caused any drama, but simply because my presence might make things uncomfortable for Sophia. I finally stood up and walked to the kitchen. My hands were shaking as I poured myself a glass of water. I stared at my reflection in the microwave door and felt something break inside me. I had spent years trying to maintain some kind of relationship with my family, even when they clearly favored Sophia. I had swallowed my pride so many times. I had stayed quiet when they compared us. I had made excuses for them in my head. But this was different. This was them openly choosing to erase me from one of the most important days in our family's life. I picked up my phone again and called Sophia directly. She answered after 4 rings. "Hey," she said, her voice flat. "Sophia," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom just called me. She said I'm not invited to your wedding. Is that true?" There was a short pause. "Yeah," she replied. "It's true." I felt like someone had poured cold water over me. "You're okay with this? You're okay with Mom and Dad banning me from your wedding?" Sophia sighed like I was the one being difficult. "Look, Isla, things have always been tense between us. And after what happened last year with the money, I just don't want any negativity on my day. I want my wedding to be peaceful. Is that so wrong?" I closed my eyes. "So you're punishing me because I couldn't give you money when I was struggling myself?" "It's not punishment," she said quickly. "It's just, I think it's better this way. For everyone." I felt tears burning in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "Sophia," I said quietly, "you're my sister. We grew up together. And you're okay with me not being there on your wedding day?" She was quiet for a short second. Then she said something that hurt more than anything else. "Isla, you've always made everything about you. Even now. This is my wedding. Can you just, for once, not make it difficult?" I didn't say anything after that. I simply ended the call. I stood in my kitchen, staring at the wall, feeling completely empty. My own sister had just told me that my presence at her wedding would be difficult, and my parents had supported her decision without hesitation. That night, I cried for the first time in a long while, not because I wanted to go to the wedding so badly, but because I finally understood something I had been avoiding for years. My family didn't just favor Sophia. They had slowly pushed me out of the family altogether. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and a strange sense of clarity. I wasn't going to beg them to let me come to the wedding. I wasn't going to fight for a place where I clearly wasn't wanted. Instead, I made a different decision. I picked up my phone and searched for the wedding venue's number. It was a beautiful old estate just outside Portland. Sophia had been obsessed with it for months. I called them. A woman answered politely. "Hello, Evergreen Estate. How may I help you?" I took a deep breath.
"Hi," I said. "My name is Isla Bennett. My sister, Sophia Bennett, has her wedding booked with you in 3 weeks. I wanted to inform you that due to some family issues, the wedding might need to be canceled or postponed." There was a short pause on the other end. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we usually only take cancellation requests from the couple or the main booker." "I understand," I replied, "but I'm calling because there's been a serious family conflict. My parents and sister have decided to exclude me from the wedding, and I don't feel comfortable staying silent about it anymore." The woman sounded uncomfortable. I'll have to check with my manager about this. Can I take your number and get back to you?" I gave her my number and ended the call. I didn't know if they would actually do anything, but I had planted the seed. That evening, I received a call from an unknown number. It was the venue manager. "Miss Bennett," he said, sounding serious, "we've received some concerning information regarding the wedding booked under Sophia Bennett. Due to certain internal issues that have come to light, we've decided to cancel the booking effective immediately." I sat up straight. "Cancel?" I repeated. "Yes, we've already informed the main contact. They were quite upset, but our policy is clear when it comes to these kinds of situations." I didn't know what to say. After the call ended, I sat in silence for a long time. I hadn't expected them to actually cancel the venue. I had only called to create some trouble, to make my family feel even a fraction of the rejection I was feeling. But now, the wedding venue was gone, and I knew my family was going to lose their minds when they found out. I didn't sleep well that night. Even though I had called the venue myself, a part of me still couldn't believe they had actually canceled the booking. I kept checking my phone, expecting angry messages from my family, but nothing came until the next morning. At 8:42 a.m., my phone started ringing nonstop. First, it was my mother, then my father, then Sophia, then my mother again. I didn't answer any of them. I just sat on my couch, staring at the screen as it lit up repeatedly. At 8:15 a.m., Sophia sent me a voice note. Her voice was high-pitched and panicked. "Isla, what the hell did you do? The venue just called and said they canceled the wedding. They're saying it's because of some family conflict. What did you tell them?" I didn't reply. 10 minutes later, my mother called again. This time, I picked up. "Isla," she said, the moment I answered, her voice sharp and angry. "Did you call the venue? Did you tell them to cancel Sophia's wedding?" I stayed calm. "I called them yesterday. I told them there was a serious family issue and that I didn't feel comfortable with the wedding going ahead while I was being excluded." There was a long pause. You actually did that?" my mother asked, sounding shocked. "Do you have any idea what you've done? We've already paid a huge deposit. The florist, the caterers, the photographer, everything was booked around that venue. How could you be so selfish?" I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat. "Selfish?" I repeated. "You banned me from my own sister's wedding, and now I'm selfish for reacting to it?" "This is not the time for your drama, Isla," she snapped. "Sophia is heartbroken. She's been crying since we got the call. We're trying to find another venue, but it's impossible this close to the date. You've ruined everything." I closed my eyes. "I didn't ruin anything, Mom. You did. The moment you decided I wasn't welcome at my sister's wedding, you made this happen. I just made sure you felt the consequences." She was quiet for a few seconds. When she spoke again, her voice was lower, almost pleading. "Isla, please, just call the venue back. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. We can fix this." I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. "No," I said. "I'm not fixing anything. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it." I hung up. Throughout the day, my phone kept buzzing. My father sent me several long messages, some angry, some trying to guilt-trip me. Sophia kept sending voice notes, alternating between crying and screaming at me. I didn't respond to any of them. By evening, the reality of the situation had clearly hit them. My mother called again around 6 p.m. This time, her voice sounded defeated. "Isla," she said quietly, "we've been calling every venue in the city. Nothing's available on such short notice. The wedding is in 3 weeks. We don't know what to do." I stayed silent. She continued, her voice cracking. "Your sister is devastated. She's been locked in her room since morning. She keeps saying her wedding is ruined. Please, just help us this one time. We're begging you." I felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of me felt satisfied. Another part of me felt heavy. "I'm not going to help you fix this, Mom," I said. "You excluded me from the wedding like I was some kind of problem. Now that the consequences have arrived, you want me to make everything better? That's not how it works." She started crying on the phone. "We made a mistake," she admitted. "We shouldn't have asked you to stay away, but please don't punish Sophia for our decision. She's your sister." I took a deep breath. "Sophia agreed with your decision," I said. "She told me herself that my presence would create drama. So no, Mom, I'm not going to save her wedding. You all made this bed. Now you can lie in it." I ended the call. That night, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea, watching the city lights. For the first time since this whole situation started, I felt a sense of calm. Not happiness, but a quiet sense of justice. They had tried to erase me from one of the most important days in our family, and now, because of their own actions, that day was falling apart. Still, a small part of me felt guilty. Sophia's wedding was being affected, and she wasn't entirely at fault. But then I remembered how easily she had agreed to ban me, and the guilt faded. The next morning, my father sent me a long message. Isla, I know you're angry, but this is getting out of hand. We're losing deposits, vendors are angry, and Sophia is a mess. If you have even a little bit of love left for this family, please call the venue and fix this. We're willing to apologize publicly if that's what you want. I read the message twice, then I replied with just 4 words. You should have thought of that earlier. I put my phone on silent and went about my day. By the evening, the news had spread within our extended family. My aunt called me asking what was going on. I told her the truth, that I had been banned from the wedding and had informed the venue about the family conflict. She was shocked, but didn't take sides. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, I received one final message from my mother. It was short. We found a new venue. It's not as good, and it's going to cost us a lot more, but at least the wedding can still happen. I hope you're happy. I stared at the message for a long time. I wasn't happy, but for the first time, I didn't feel like the victim anymore. The next few days were strangely quiet from my family side. After I refused to call the venue back, my mother stopped messaging me as frequently. Sophia also went silent. I thought maybe they had finally accepted the situation and were moving forward with the new venue they had found. I was wrong. On Thursday morning, I received a call from my aunt, Claire, my mother's sister. She rarely called me, so I knew something was up. Isla, she said the moment I picked up, what on earth is going on with Sophia's wedding? I sighed. What did Mom tell you? She said you got the original venue canceled out of spite, Aunt Claire replied. She's saying you're punishing Sophia for something that happened between you two last year. Is that true? I closed my eyes for a second. No, I said calmly. What's true is that Mom and Dad told me I wasn't welcome at the wedding. They said my presence would create drama. So I called the venue and informed them there was a serious family conflict. They decided to cancel on their own. There was a long pause on the other end. Aunt Claire's voice softened a little. Isla, I didn't know they had asked you not to come. Your mother made it sound like you were the one causing problems. That's what they do. They twist things so they look like the victims. Aunt Claire was quiet again. Then she said something that surprised me. I'm on your side, Isla. What they did wasn't right. But right now, Sophia's really struggling. The new venue they booked is falling through too. Apparently, the owner found out about the drama and got cold feet. They're running out of options. I didn't know how to feel about that. Part of me felt satisfied they were finally facing consequences, but another part of me felt heavy. Sophia's wedding was turning into a disaster, and even though she had agreed to exclude me, I knew how much she had dreamed about this day. Still, I didn't offer to help. That evening, I received a message from Sophia herself. It was the first time she had texted me since the venue cancellation. Isla, can we please talk? I know you're angry, but this is getting really bad. The new venue just canceled too. We don't know what to do anymore. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. What do you want me to do, Sophia? She replied almost immediately. Just call the original venue. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Please, I'm begging you. I put my phone down without replying. The next morning, my father called. I let it ring for a while before answering. Isla, he said, his voice sounding more tired than angry. We need to talk. I'm listening. He took a deep breath. I know we handled this badly. Your mother and I, we shouldn't have asked you to stay away from the wedding. It was wrong. But right now, we're in a very difficult situation. We've lost 2 venues in less than a week. We're losing money every day. Sophia is falling apart. I'm asking you, as your father, to please help us fix this."
I stayed quiet for a few seconds. Then I asked the question I had been wanting to ask for days. "Dad, why did you agree to keep me out of the wedding in the first place?" He was silent for a long moment. "Because your sister was scared," he finally admitted. "She was worried that if you came, there would be tension. And because I was still angry about the fight you two had last year, I let that anger affect my decision." "At least you're being honest now," I said. "Isla," he continued, "I'm not asking you to forget what we did, but please don't let your anger destroy your sister's wedding. She's not the only one who made mistakes here. We all did." I felt my chest tighten. "I'll think about it," I said quietly. I ended the call. That night, I sat on my balcony for a long time, thinking. A part of me wanted to stay firm. They had hurt me deeply, and I had every right to protect myself. But another part of me kept thinking about Sophia. No matter how much she had hurt me, did she really deserve to have her wedding completely ruined? I didn't know the answer. The next morning, I made a decision. I called the original venue. The manager remembered me from my previous call. "Miss Bennett," he said politely, "how can I help you?" I took a deep breath. "I want to ask if it's still possible to reinstate my sister's wedding booking, under one condition." There was a pause. "What condition?" "That my family issues a written apology to me acknowledging that they wrongly excluded me from the wedding, and that this apology is shared with the close family members who were told I was causing problems." The manager was quiet for a few seconds. "I'll have to discuss this with the owners, but I'll get back to you by tomorrow." I thanked him and ended the call. That evening, my mother called me again. This time, her voice sounded different, less angry, more desperate. "Isla," she said, "the venue called us. They said you're willing to help get the venue back, but only if we apologize to you publicly within the family." I stayed silent. She continued, her voice cracking. "We'll do it. We'll send a message to the family explaining that we made a mistake by asking you not to come to the wedding. We'll admit it was wrong. Just, please, help us get the venue back." I closed my eyes. For the first time since this began, they were willing to admit that they were wrong, but only because they were desperate. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt tired. "Fine," I said quietly. "I'll call the venue tomorrow morning." My mother let out a shaky breath of relief. "Thank you," she whispered. I didn't say anything else. I just ended the call. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized something. I had won, but winning didn't feel as good as I thought it would. Because even though my family was finally being forced to acknowledge what they did to me, the damage between us had already been done, and I wasn't sure if anything could truly fix it anymore. The next morning, I woke up to a message from my mother. It was a screenshot of a family group chat. She had sent a long message to our close relatives explaining that they made a mistake by asking me not to attend Sophia's wedding. She admitted that it was wrong and that they should have handled the situation better. I read the message twice. It wasn't a full, heartfelt apology. It was carefully worded, almost like they were trying to save face while still doing the bare minimum to get the venue back. But it was something. At least now the family knew the truth, that I hadn't been banned because I was difficult, but because my own parents had chosen to exclude me. Still, it didn't bring me the satisfaction I thought it would. Later that afternoon, Sophia called me. It was the first time she had called instead of texting since everything started. I picked up after a few rings. "Hey," she said, her voice low.
Hey. There was an awkward silence for a few seconds. I saw what Mom sent in the group, she finally said. I know you asked for that apology. I didn't say anything. Sophia continued, I wanted to say that I'm sorry too, for agreeing with Mom and Dad when they said you shouldn't come. I was stressed about the wedding and I let them convince me that having you there would make things complicated. That wasn't fair to you. I stayed quiet, waiting to see if she would say more. She took a shaky breath. I was angry at you for a long time because of what happened last year, but I shouldn't have let that affect my wedding. You're still my sister, and I do want you there. If you still want to come? I closed my eyes. For a moment, I felt a small flicker of warmth, but it was quickly replaced by caution. Sophia, I said gently, I appreciate you saying that, but I need you to understand something. This isn't just about the wedding anymore. It's about years of being pushed aside and treated like I matter less than you. An apology doesn't erase all of that. I know, she said quietly. I'm not asking you to forget everything. I miss my sister, and I don't want my wedding to be the reason we completely fall apart. I didn't know what to say. After a long pause, I replied, I'll think about it. Okay, she said softly. That's all I'm asking. We ended the call. That evening, I received another message, this time from my father. It was short and direct. We got the original venue back. They agreed to reinstate the booking after your mother sent the message to the family. Thank you for making the call. I stared at the message. They had gotten what they wanted. The venue was back. The wedding could proceed as planned. But something felt off. I had forced them to apologize and admit they were wrong. I had made them face consequences. Yet instead of feeling victorious, I felt strangely empty. The next morning, I decided to visit my grandfather. I hadn't seen him since the wedding drama started, and I needed to talk to someone who wouldn't judge me. He was sitting in his garden when I arrived, watering his plants. When he saw me, he smiled and gestured for me to sit on the bench beside him. I heard what happened with the venue. Your mother called me yesterday. I nodded, but didn't say anything. He put down the watering can and looked at me. How are you feeling? He asked gently. I was quiet for a few seconds before answering honestly. I thought forcing them to apologize and getting the venue canceled would make me feel better. But it didn't. I still feel heavy, like something is still unfinished. My grandfather nodded thoughtfully. That's because revenge without healing doesn't bring peace. You made them face the consequences of their actions. That was necessary. But now you have to decide what you actually want moving forward. Do you want to cut them off completely, or do you want to try and rebuild something, even if it's different from before? I looked down at my hands. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me still feels angry, but another part is tired of carrying this resentment. My grandfather placed his hand over mine. You don't have to decide right now, he said. But whatever you choose, make sure it's for you, not because you feel guilty and not because they're pressuring you. This is your life, Isla. You get to decide who deserves a place in it. I stayed with him for another hour, talking about small things and enjoying the quiet. For the first time in weeks, I felt a little more grounded. When I was leaving, he said one last thing. Whatever happens with the wedding, you don't owe anyone your presence if it costs you your peace. Remember that. I nodded and hugged him tightly before driving back home. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about everything. My family had finally been forced to acknowledge what they did to me. The venue was back. Sophia had apologized, even if it wasn't perfect. My parents were no longer pretending that I was the problem. But I still didn't feel completely at peace. Because deep down, I knew that an apology and a reinstated venue didn't erase years of being treated like I was less important. And I wasn't sure if I was ready to just move on like nothing had happened. The wedding day arrived faster than I expected. I woke up early that morning and sat on the edge of my bed for a long time, staring at the dress hanging on my closet door. It was the same dress I had bought months ago when I still believed I would be attending my sister's wedding as a normal guest. Now, everything felt different. I still hadn't fully decided whether I would go or not. A part of me wanted to stay home and protect my peace. Another part of me felt like if I didn't show up, it would mean they had successfully pushed me out of the family forever. Around 10 a.m., my grandfather called me. "Are you going?" he asked directly. I sighed. "I don't know yet." He was quiet for a few seconds before speaking. "Isla, you don't owe anyone your presence. But if you do decide to go, go for yourself, not for them. And remember, you're allowed to leave whenever you want." His words gave me some clarity. By 2 p.m., I had made my decision. I got ready slowly, did my makeup, and wore the dress. I didn't go overboard. I kept it simple. I wasn't going there to impress anyone. I was going to close this chapter on my own terms. When I reached the venue, I sat in my car for almost 10 minutes before stepping out. My heart was beating fast. I didn't know how my family would react when they saw me. As I walked inside, I immediately noticed the change in atmosphere. A few relatives turned to look at me. Some smiled politely. Others looked away uncomfortably. It was clear that everyone knew what had happened. The public apology my mother had sent in the family group had made sure of that. I spotted my grandfather first. He was sitting near the front, and the moment he saw me, he stood up and walked over. "You came," he said with a small smile. "I almost didn't," I admitted. He gently squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you either way." I took a deep breath and walked further inside. That's when I saw them. My parents were standing near the stage, talking to the wedding coordinator. The moment my mother saw me, she froze. My father turned around and his face went blank for a second before he quickly looked away. Sophia was standing a little further away in her wedding dress. When her eyes met mine, she looked surprised and then guilty. I didn't go up to any of them. I simply found an empty seat in the middle row and sat down. The ceremony started 20 minutes later.
Throughout the whole event, I could feel my family's eyes on me. My mother kept glancing in my direction. My father avoided looking at me completely. Sophia, on the other hand, kept stealing nervous looks at me during the vows. After the ceremony, during the reception, I stayed mostly to myself. I spoke to a few cousins and had a long conversation with my grandfather, but I didn't approach my parents or Sophia. Around 8 p.m., Sophia walked up to me while I was standing near the dessert table. She looked nervous. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. I nodded. We stepped outside onto the balcony. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, Sophia broke the silence. "I know an apology doesn't fix everything," she said. "But I really am sorry, Isla. Not just for the wedding, for everything. I was jealous of you for a long time. You were always independent and didn't need mom and dad's approval the way I did. I hated that. So I made things difficult for you whenever I could." I stayed quiet, letting her speak. She continued. "When mom and dad said you shouldn't come to the wedding, I agreed because it felt easier. I didn't want to deal with any tension. But after everything that happened with the venue, I realized how messed up that was. You didn't deserve to be treated like that." She looked at me with genuine regret in her eyes. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want you to know that I'm truly sorry." I looked at my sister. The same sister who had smirked when our father said he wouldn't walk me down the aisle. I believe you're sorry, I said honestly. But trust isn't rebuilt in one conversation, Sophia. It takes time. And right now, I don't know if I'm ready to rebuild anything, with you or with Mom and Dad. She nodded, her eyes becoming glassy. I understand, she said softly. I hope one day we can at least be civil with each other. I gave her a small nod. Maybe, but not today. She didn't push. She simply nodded and went back inside. A little while later, my mother approached me. She looked hesitant. Isla, she said carefully, thank you for coming. It means a lot to Sophia and to me. I looked at her. I didn't come for you, I said. I came because I decided that I wasn't going to let what happened define me anymore. But that doesn't mean everything is okay between us. My mother's eyes filled with tears. I know. And I'm not going to ask you to forget everything. I just hope that someday we can try again. I didn't give her an answer, because the truth was, I still didn't know if I wanted to try again. As the night went on, I realized something important. I had gotten my revenge. I had made them face consequences. I had forced them to apologize publicly. But more than that, I had proven to myself that I no longer needed their validation to feel worthy. Around 10 p.m., I decided to leave.
As I was walking toward the exit, my father stopped me. He looked tired and defeated. Isla, he said quietly, I know I've said this before, but I'm truly sorry for everything. I looked at him for a long moment. I know you are, I replied, but sorry doesn't erase years of damage. I hope you understand that. He nodded slowly. I do. I gave him a small nod and walked out of the venue. As I drove home that night, I felt a strange sense of peace. I didn't get the fairy tale ending where my family suddenly became perfect and we all hugged it out, but I did get something more valuable. I got my self-respect back. I got the clarity that I don't have to keep accepting mistreatment just because it comes from family. And most importantly, I got the power to choose who stays in my life and who doesn't. If you've ever been pushed aside or mistreated by your own family, drop a comment right now and tell me where you're watching from. I read every single one. You know, after everything that happened, I realized one simple truth. Sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones who hurt you the most. And when that happens, you don't have to keep waiting for them to change. You can choose to protect yourself. You can choose to walk away. And you can choose to build a life where their approval no longer determines your worth. I chose that, and I've never felt more free.